Okay, awesome. Um, is my are you seeing my hand here? No, are you seeing my face?
Your face, yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure. Because I'm seeing this, but it's okay. Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. My name is Shannon. I'm going to be your instructor. What I'm going to show you today is how to color some seashells, and I have a couple of examples over here of how I colored them. With this project, we did have a downloadable PDF, and this is what that downloadable PDF looks like. So I hope you guys downloaded that and printed it. It was available on the class listing. And then I also have here some swatch cards over here at the side. So these are all of the colors that I will be using today. They are all individual colors. They weren't in a set, but I have a mix of Ciao and sketch markers that I'll be using. But I just have these swatched out here to show you guys. And then I also have some color blends that I already did. These are some of the blends that I went ahead and used for the shells. And so I'm going to show you guys just a little bit, maybe 3 of these examples here to show just on a scrap sheet of paper before we get to coloring so that we can get comfortable with blending the colors together. So with that, I'm going to move these sheets out of the way and I'll bring them back once we get into the coloring. But this is just a sheet of marker paper. I'll put that in the center here. And this is just, again, a blank sheet of marker paper. And what I want to show you guys is a couple of transitions. And so I'm going to start with a simple blend transition, for example, with Y15 and Y11. So this is going to be a pretty easy blend. There's just 2 yellow colors. One is darker than the other. When I blend 2 colors, I usually like to start with the darker one first. With that being said, I'm going to use Y15. And just in case you guys don't know this yet, the Ciao and the sketch marker have the same 2 nibs on them. It is, as you can see here, indicated by the icons and this kind of gray stripe. The only major differences, the Ciao marker comes in 180 colors versus the sketch full line of 358. And the sketch marker holds more ink in the barrel, so it's sold at a higher price point than the Ciao. But the Ciao is a great marker to get started with. Again, same 2 nibs. Okay, so with the Y15 on my marker sheet of paper, this is a medium weight paper, I'm going to take that super brush nib and I'm going to add just a little bit of pigment onto the page, maybe like ½ an inch worth, and I'm just moving my marker up and down. Next, I will grab that Y11, super brush nib again, and from about halfway in this swatch, I will start to add the Y11 color and then bring it out. So by doing this and working from inside the area of the darker color, I just layered a second time too. We are reactivating that darker pigment and drawing it out. So it's like, just reactivating that pigment and making it kind of go with that lighter color. And I layered that lighter color 3 times. I do want to show this just really quick. I can keep layering it in, but by adding that light color inside the area with dark, I get to draw out that darker color. And it will take you a few layers. And I know this is yellow, so it's a lighter color, not as obvious to see. But that is just a soft blend between 2 of the same type of color. I'll do that with another pair. I have BV04 and BV02. So this blue violet color, I'm going to use the darker one first, BV04, and add that pigment just a little bit. And then I'll quickly go in with the BV02. Again, halfway inside that area of the darker one, I'll start to add this pigment. And then I'll go over that midsection again just a few more times. And you can also color in small circles. That tends to kind of get rid of the linear look of coloring up and down. So I'll show that as well. So as you can see, we've got a pretty good blend between a darker color and the lighter one. Definitely applying that lighter color a few times and working from inside the area with the darker pigment. And so it does take a lot of layering. I definitely refill my lighter colors more often because of this blending technique. So I do just want to mention that. Okay, now I want to show an example of blending 3 colors together. So I'm going to blend a blue violet with the same blue violet, but with a blue green. So I'm going to use BG01. So I will kind of repeat the same steps here. Starting off with BV04 and then BV02, working from inside that area of BV04 and bringing it out. And I'm going quite a more distance because I'm going to use another color to go inside this one. So I'm kind of using a generous amount of BV02. This is probably 4 layers. And now I'll take that blue-green BG01 and again work from inside that area with the blue-violet 02. Going to get a few layers there. And the lighter colors really do pick up and move that ink around. So let me pick this up and show. So there's a transition between BV04, 02, and then a blue-green 01. And I will say too, the paper, obviously you can see the ink on the back, but nothing is on my desk. So I definitely recommend a medium to heavier weight paper when you know that you're doing a lot of these layerings. Okay, and then I'll show another example, perhaps the blue greens with the yellow to kind of make this really pretty green color in the middle. So I'll use BG05, BG13, and Y15. I'll just do one more and then we'll get into the coloring the shells. So yeah, darker color first. And I will add about 1 inch of this color to my practice sheet. And then I've got BG13, which I'll use as my middle tone color, going from inside that that B05. And I do like to soak that area where the lines are, where you can kind of tell where that one color stopped and the other one started. So I definitely like to work that area. And now I'll use Y15. Go from inside and draw the color out. This is a drastic color change, so definitely add a lot of layers of this Y color. That's how you get that soft transition. Or if you want, you can use some of the 0 colorless blender. There we go. So I will show that as well. So there's 3 different colors blended. We've got B05, BG13 into Y15. Okay, so that's just our practice sheet of paper. And I will keep this kind of swatch card off to the side and refer to it as I color the shells. It's always nice to have a reference point whenever you're coloring. I'll set that aside. Okay, so here are some of those examples in action. This is a blend between Y15 and Y11. Here we've got that B05, BG13, and the Y15. And down here, we've got BV04, 02, and then that blue-green color. So a lot of nice transitions that we just practiced applied to these cute little shells. And I will show you guys how to do that next. Just want to make sure this fits in my camera. Okay, sweet. So I will start with just the 2 colors over here. This yellow shell, or the shell I'm going to color yellow. And I'll start with Y15. And what I did over here was use the color under all of these little ridges. They're kind of like little dash marks, but I'm using those as a depth point in the shell. So I will just add pretty much a straight line underneath all of those dashed areas. And go back and forth maybe 2 times just to make sure that ink is really smooth and consistent. And the super brush nib is also really nice because it's so flexible, so it gets those curves pretty well. Okay, and then this is just something that I'm going to do as personal preference. I'm going to take the Y15 and outline the right side. So I'm just going to go along the outline area of the right side. This will help create some depth. So I'll lift this to show real quick. So that's where I am so far. And this is only using Y15. Next, I will use Y11 and basically fill in the rest of the area, but really making sure that I go over just a little bit of the Y15 to make sure that they blend well together. So I'm applying those principles that we just kind of went over in the practice sheet. I'm overlapping this light color a little bit with the darker one, and that reactivates that pigment. It's also a trick I use when I've worked on a drawing and I set it aside for a few days. When you want to reactivate colors, all you have to do is kind of overlap them just a little bit. All right, so I'll pick this up. I layered Y11 a few times in here. And then you can see just a slight gradation over on the right side to try and give it some more depth. But we can go over with Y15 one more time. The more that you layer the same color, the obviously darker it will get. So maybe I just want to go over a thin line right underneath all of those little dash marks to reestablish that dark color. So I'm just layering this for the second time. And there we go. There's the first one. Pretty simple, just 2 colors and 2 in the same color family, which is always a great way to get started if you're new to Copic or you're just starting out with coloring with markers. Coloring in the same family is always easiest. Next, I'm going to move on to maybe this shell here. I'll use that Y15 again, but I'm going to use a blue and a blue-green here. So I will basically be applying this transition. Okay. Are there any questions or anything? Do I need to slow down? Looks like we're doing okay in the comments. Awesome. Okay. So this shape is obviously more of a spiral. So there's going to be a lot of repetition here. We're not going to be able to color this as quickly as this shape. There's a lot of details, but we'll just follow the same steps. So I've got that super brush nib. This is B05. And I actually might turn it a little bit, but I'm going to follow the line work of the shell and flick this pigment just a little bit past where these lines are because we have to blend them in with another color. So I will start by flicking the color. And what's nice about this project is that if I go outside the lines, it's okay because we're going to cut these out later and turn them into magnets. So don't worry about being super precise, at least on the outside. Once you get inside the spiral, obviously you're going to need to pay attention because you can't cut that out. But yeah, and something else that I like to do too is to turn my paper constantly. It's always easier to get a good angle of my brush when I do that. So yeah, I'll just move around this spiral shape. Turn this again. And this is a really fun, easy craft and looks really good on your refrigerator to add a pop of color. All right, turn this, almost got all of the blues in. Okay, there we go. So that is what my shell looks like so far. I just added the pigment slightly past where those little lines are. And now I'm going to use that, oh, I didn't need to finish this out in the middle real quick. I was way too concentrated on the outside. Add little flick marks in the middle. There we go. And I'll add this color over to the, covering most of this area to the right, where there's kind of an air pocket that goes into the shell. We want to show that depth, so that area is pretty dark. I left a little skinny highlight at the bottom, which I will fill with BG13. Go ahead and do that first. Okay. And now I will flick the pigment from inside the area with B5 to another third of the way down roughly, because we've got to add that yellow. But I will probably go over it 2 times, possibly 3, but I'm working from inside that B05 area. And I'm flicking that color down. Awesome. And this is actually one of my favorite colors. I love the blues and the blue greens. And right before this project started, I was actually refilling this marker, which is super nice about Copic products, that you can refill everything. And I do actually pair up this color, whether it's for shells or something else, with the B05. Something about them blends so well together. So I go through this color pretty quickly. And just for an example, as I'm coloring this in, if you happen to, say, use the flicking technique or try and blend a light color with a really dark one, and if the nib gets stained or damaged, you can actually get replaceable nibs too, which is really nice. I've had to do that once before with a yellow color. However, usually the zero colorless blender, if you apply that pigment to the edge of the nib, it will kind of get rid of that stain, especially if you do it right away. Okay, almost done. And again, this mid-tone color, since it's lighter than the one next to it, you definitely have to blend it a few times over, but it does get a really nice transition. So here is what my shell looks like so far. We've got that nice middle glow. And when we add that yellow, especially when it's next to this blue, it's going to really pop. If you look over to the left, you can see obviously that yellow shell we just colored is super bright. So I'm going to add that Y15 color in here. And it's also going to make some nice greens because it mixes with the blue. And naturally, those 2 primary colors will make green, which is a secondary color. All right, super brush nib. And I guess I'll just keep starting off from the outside to go in. But for this one, because this is the third color, I'm actually going to go from the opposite direction from the bottom and flick the color up into, let me try and hold this up so you guys can see. But I'm going to start from down in here and flick the color up into that BG13. So that middle color is kind of interesting. You can work from either direction if you want, but it's always easier if you go from that dark one and draw that dark color out towards the middle. And since we have all these little circles in the middle of this shell, by having the light color in the center, we get to see all of those fun details of the line art too, which is always really nice. Some other alterations you can make to your shells. Let's say you want to add maybe a little bit of a glitter pen or some kind of scribbles inside these hollow circles. you can totally add that too. Or any other kind of details or sparkles that you want to add. Kind of gives that glitter of the ocean kind of look. Turn my paper again just to finish these off here. Okay. And at this point, again, I'll lift this up to show you guys. This is what I have so far for this second shell. We've got that B05 transitioning into BG13, transitioning into Y15, and then we've got this nice green in the middle when you mix that yellow with that blue-green. So this is where we're at, just one application of the color. If I want to go back and make these areas along the outside more dark, then I totally can. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to try that here with the B05, just to reiterate those dark areas. And I'm not going to go as far down as I did the first time. I'm going to cover about half of these little hatch marks, not pressing super hard, because I don't want to have to repeat every single step again. But I'm just adding a little bit. Sometimes that second layer of a color can really add that extra punch. And the inside areas get a little bit tight since they're detailed. So I'm kind of just layering it, kind of, what am I saying? Outlining this border, just because it's such a small space. Okay, so there we go. That is another shell. We blended 3 different colors together. And I will lift it up one more time in case anybody needs to look or take a screenshot or whatnot. But there's just a little bit darker when I added that blue for the second time. And again, when we cut, we can cut all of these little scribbles out later because they will be turned into magnets. So that's really nice too. All right, and then I'm going to show maybe this one down in here. I will show this example, which will be 2 blue violets and a blue green. So we're going to blend a pretty dark purple tone into a blue-green tone. All right. So I'm going to use an opposite effect. So on this one, we want dark to light. On this one, I'm going to go the opposite, dark on the inside, light on the outside. And the reason I'm choosing to do that too is because of the line art itself. I see little lines going in that direction. And typically the line art, if it's shown like that, that means it's going to be a darker area. So I will start with B04, and I'm actually just going to outline it first. This is a technique that I use because I often kind of accidentally go into an area I'm not supposed to. So I always like to outline it quickly, just to establish the area that I want with this color. And I'll go all the way around. Definitely have to use the tip of the super brush nib when you get to these smaller areas. But that's about it. Next, I will use that flicking technique. I will also turn my page. All right, and I will flick, and you really have to make sure you kind of lift that pen up, because if you just, hold on, let me show this on a scrap sheet of paper. If you just stop, it's going to have a very harsh finish versus, excuse me, if you lift the marker up. So if you're just moving your pen, obviously it's going to be an abrupt finish. But this right here, these 2 examples are the flicking technique. I'm physically lifting my marker up, and that's how I get that more unfinished look. So that's what I'll be doing here, especially because this color is pretty dark compared to the BV02. Even though there's only 2 numbers kind of between them, there's a little bit more of a jump. So we want to make sure they can blend well. And so I'm going a little bit past where these lines are of the template. And again, this is a spiral shape, so it's going to be a bit repetitive, but it is a really good way to help you learn these blending techniques. And towards the middle, it's almost like just little hatch marks. All right. So again, pretty dark color. I just covered a little bit past where those lines are. And so next I'll use that BV02, which is in the same color family, which will be easier to blend. But as I was just saying, quite a value jump here. So I will have to layer this maybe 3 or 4 times. And so if you are on a thin sheet of paper or working on a really nice table, I definitely recommend having like a sheet underneath it to protect the table. Okay. And here we go. From inside this dark area, I will add this color and flick it out. And I'm not leaving a ton of space along the edge because that blue color is quite, well, it's a different color entirely compared to this purple. So it really stands out. And so I just don't want it to over dominate the piece. And learning from what I practiced earlier before this class, I realized that, and I'll show my example over here, because this was my practice piece. I realized how dominant that blue color can really be. So that's why I tried to draw out that BV02 pretty close to the edge, because that blue, like I said, is pretty dominant. So that's why it's always nice, especially with templates like this, download it and print it, and you can practice multiple times. Maybe the same shell that you like, the shape, you want to color with a bunch of different combinations. So it's always nice having line art to practice. And I will keep turning my page. It's always so much easier when you do that as I go around the spiral. And I have a question for the audience, actually. Do you guys own sketch markers more or the Ciao markers? And of those markers, which color do you like the most? Oh, I see a Ciao in the chat. Thank you for that. It's always nice too with the Ciao because the caps can snap on the back. It's always really convenient, especially if you have pets. Yeah, I see, let's see, someone says they usually use Sketch, but both are great. I agree. The day that you realize they have the same 2 nibs is a game changer for the collection. I see, using stamping, okay. Ciao in the pinks. Ooh, olive green, that's a really pretty color. Thank you for the comments. All right, I will lift this up. Okay, so there's maybe a few areas I can go over again if I want to, but for now, I'm liking where this is. And if you wanted to just use these 2 colors and not the blue-green, you could have just, added it all the way to the edge. However, I am going to add that blue-green BG01 and blend it in with the blue-violet. So here we go. My favorite feature about the Ciao, I love these snappable caps. Okay, and I will flick from the outside, moving in. And since we're on the outside, if some colors go over the black lines, it's all good. Cut those out later. I see equal number of each, turquoise. Yes. I think BG57 might be my favorite of the blue-greens. That's such a sweet color. Okay, and I'm not covering all of the BV02, just a little bit, because I do want that middle color to still shine, still be able to see it through. But yeah, I'm just adding about 2 layers of BG01. And continuously flipping that page. Awesome. And for all of the people who are watching that are pretty familiar with Copic and alcohol markers, what is your go-to choice of paper? Because I am curious. I am using Neenah Premium Cardstock here, which I know is a favorite amongst crafters. This paper runs through your printer also very easily for printing templates like this or other line art. But I know Michael's also sells like Canson and Strathmore, other good papers that work really good for markers. Okay, so there we go. That is this finished shell. I definitely went in with a few layers of these lighter ones. And I blended that BV04 with this BV02 and then that blue-green 01. Oh, I see Strathmore watercolor. That's probably really good for a lot of layering. But yeah, okay, I see a comment that says the paper. Yes, this is Neenah Premium Cardstock. I think maybe Nate, my handy helper, might be able to write that, but Neenah, N-E-E-N-A-H, Premium Cardstock. This is what I'm using today. And yeah, so those are 3 different shells. Is there any particular shell that anybody wants to see drawn, or any other, colored, sorry, or any other combination before I show you guys how to make the magnets? I think this is 70-pound or 68-pound paper, and it's a bright white. And you can even find this, with Michael's or like an office supplier too, probably. I just want to see in the comments if anybody wants to see any other type of shell or any other color combination that I have over here. So the orange ones, one of the orange ones. Okay, I think I'll go with this one right here. I'll show the R14, E02, and Y11. I'll show this one. Thank you for that. So I just wanted to make sure if anyone had anything in particular. Okay, so I'm going to start off with R14. And similar to the one over here, I created a shadow along the bottom portions or over in this area off to the right side. So I will repeat that kind of a process here. And I'm just going to outline this area real quick and then flick the color about 1/3 of the way up. And this shell has a pattern on it, so we don't have any of these lines to kind of guide us as to where the coloring goes. So this is just a personal choice. It happens to be kind of tilted this way on the template, so why not make the shadow that direction too? And then I will flick from down here and to the right. And repeat that for all of these little segments. This is just one layer, and down in these areas, they get kind of small, so just a little bit. And then I will flick and fill most of this area with the R14. Okay, next I will use E02, which Shannon, the name, yes.
Quick question from Catherine. What about the oval shell, BY04 to E02?
Wait, BY, you mean BV04?
BV,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, no, you're good. Oh, this one up in here?
Yes.
Okay, I will just make sure I do that one too. I'm just gonna put like a little dot there. I'll do
All
that
right,
one
cool.
next.
And then Janet has a question as well. It
Okay.
looks like you could create your continuum of color using any two colors, but I'm sure there must be a limit to how different the two extreme colors could be. How different would be too different?
That's a good question.
You got a color wheel on you?
Yes, well, the color, I have a chart on my wall, but I would say extremely obtuse colors, like maybe a green with a purple. And I say obtuse, like when you try and blend two secondary colors, it just kind of turns out muddy, kind of like a brown. So I would say that those are typically harder to blend, or yellows with dark browns, yellows with anything super dark in general, it'll stain your nib, or like just temporarily stain it. But yeah, since somebody did mention they want to see this one, I didn't really think that these colors could blend, but they do create kind of a muted gray purple slate color when you blend a blue violet with an earth tone, especially a bright kind of pinkish earth tone like this. But you can actually do it. It just gives you an unconventional color in the middle. Same with down here, when we used only three colors, you still get a really bright green, even though we didn't use a yellow green at all. You just blend yellow with the blue green and that's what you get. So it just kind of depends which colors you're combining, but you can get some very unconventional results, but they're still very beautiful. So I hope that answers the question pretty well. Okay, so I'm gonna finish up this one and then we've got a few others recommended. We still good on time. Okay. So I'm just covering this entire area over here with the E02. Next, I will go from inside that R14 and flick the color up. I'm gonna leave about a third of that space available for that yellow. And this color has the word pink in it, which is a very nice indicator that it will blend well with other pinkish or reddish tints. So that's why I chose to blend the E02 with the R14. Sometimes the value obviously makes a difference. This particular color ends in a 2, and the one I'm blending it into ends in a 4. If you try and blend colors together that are like a 9 and a 1 that they end in, that's going to be very hard, very tricky. So always look and try and pair up your colors depending on how light or dark they are. Okay, and I'm going to take Y11, which is my light yellow, and I'm going to blend it with that E04 and soften that transition. Again, kind of working from the opposite direction, filling in that space. I go over it a few times. Okay. And I'm going to go back in with a little bit of E02 just in this big area here. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of R14 just along the edges. Again, that second application of the same color really makes it stand out more. I'm not covering the whole thing either, just a little bit. Okay. So there we go. That is a blend between R14, E04, and Y11. And focusing on more depth here at the bottom, creating a highlight here at the top. Okay, so I think it's, I'm going to do this one since that was requested first, and then I'll show how to make the magnets. And if we have time, I can do another one. But I'm going to turn this on its side since the line work itself is moving in this kind of linear fashion. I like to work more in this way versus kind of turning my hand this way. So I turn the page. And I will start with B04. And I will show you guys how to make this blend with the earth tone. So again, 3 colors. So I'll try and divide it up into thirds and flick the pigment towards the middle, lifting that brush nib. And it gets tighter as we move up to the top. So I don't want to overdo it or underdo it, I guess. And I'm leaving some of those lines open because I want to fill that with the BV02. So I'm repeating that same step on the other side. Okay, and I'll turn it just to check. Okay, maybe I'll add just a little bit more of this darker color over here. Okay, next, BV02. And this color does end in 2, and so does the earth tone that I'm using. So they should be able to mix pretty well, even though they're very, very different colors. So I'm flicking from inside the dark area outward. But I still want to have that center area available for that peachy tone. So I can't do too much here. But I'm covering a pretty generous amount, layering a few times. It's always nicer when you have a little bit more layers, gets rid of that stark finish of one color into the next. Okay, now I should have that nice central area open and ready for that E02. And with these light peach colors, similar to down here, how I said this blue is going to really overpower that blue violet since it's more saturated. This color is also more saturated. That means like bright and vibrant. So that's why I don't have a ton of space here, because this color will push and pull with those blue violets. So I will turn to the side and working in a linear way again, going back and forth, overlapping that BV02. And again, very powerful peach color. I think it's called fruit pink. So there we go. And I'll flick the color into that BV02 again. And this is to see like grayish purple because this pink is blending with it so well that it turns into a completely different color. And I'm going to go back again with BV02 to try and add some more of that blue violet to it, since that pink is that fruit pink color is so dominant. Yeah, I have to turn my page. I thought I could. Okay. There we go. All right. That turned out pretty similar to what I did over here. But the one difference, I will show this as a process example. Okay, but the one difference you might be able to see is that I added this other extra line of that BV04. I know it's not much, but it just adds that little bit more depth than over here, where I didn't add these little lines of that extra color. So if you want to add that to make more depth to each ridge of the shell, you totally can. If you want to leave it just like this, that's also fine. But yeah, so that is another shell. We have about 13 minutes until our hour is up together. So I want to go ahead and cut maybe 1 or 2 of these out and show how to make a magnet. The fun part is the coloring, definitely. But when you have art like this and you can cut it out and put it on your fridge, that's also really awesome. So I'm going to cut out just this one here at the bottom. So I've got a pair of scissors. Okay. And I loosely cut that out. And then I'm right-handed, so I will cut with my right hand, but I will pivot with my left. So as my scissors are going down, my other hand is guiding the scissors. I'm trying to get as close to that black line as possible. These are not fancy scissors either. If you have crafting scissors that are sharp, I bet those would work really well. But yeah, we're just going to cut the outline. Sometimes it's also nice to just get rid of that extra paper hanging off. And work around. All right. So there we go. There's one of our shells. Now it's cut out. And what I will do next is glue it. If you want to tape, you can also do that, to a piece of construction paper, whatever color you want. I chose kind of turquoise seafoam colors because it reminds me of the ocean. So I have an example here. I've got two already glued just to have as an example. And then I can have this, making sure that I leave some space in between to cut the shells out. I have just a regular glue stick that I'll use. If you have something else, totally fine. That scrap sheet of paper I had earlier, I'm just going to place underneath in case any glue goes off the side. I just don't want to get it on my table, on my desk. So I will add the glue, a generous amount. I don't want these peeling off. Okay. And then I will put that on my construction paper. If you have a fresh sheet, you can line it up in like the corner if you want. Doesn't matter where. Just make sure you kind of hold it, press it onto that paper. Okay. And then typically I just like to cut around it like I did before. I will kind of just cut a line here, here, and then very loose outline. Okay, and I'll save this for later. I'll put this off to the side. And that's just a very light turquoise color, a 12 by 12 inch sheet. You can buy it loose at Michael's. But yeah, so this is what they look like. I have an example here too. I just use like, I want to show a little bit of the edge so that I can see how much this color is kind of popping out against this construction paper. So I try and trim around it, give or take. Some areas might be a little bit thicker, some a little thinner. But yeah, I'll just follow the same guide. I will cut with my right hand and pivot with my left and go around the shell. We are almost done. And I hope you guys had fun joining the class today too. I know it's always fun when you get to blend with markers. Yes, thank you, Catherine. Awesome, thanks for joining. Okay, and then I'll turn here and round off that edge. Okay, I'll hold it up against my skin so you guys can see. Colored that with only 3 Copic markers, and then we mounted it onto a piece of construction paper. And now we're just gonna add the magnetic strips to the back. So what I did for this example before is I just added 2 magnetic strips, one to the top and one to the bottom. So that's all you need to do, really. And these magnetic strips you can buy kind of in the hardware section of Michael's. And what you can do is, since it is in a roll and they kind of tend to roll back in that fashion, I let out a generous amount and then I flip my art over and I kind of gauge how long the strip should be. And then, okay, so about here, I'll hold my thumb around that area and then cut. And it's always easier to cut at an angle. I'm just kind of crunching this so it lays a little bit more flat. The angle is nice because you can usually peel it a little simpler. I keep my fingernails very short, so it's always a little difficult for me, but that's all you need to do. Peel that off. And then I'll put one of these magnetic strips on the top and I'll hold it for maybe a few seconds. Awesome. And then I'll repeat. So I'll take another, and again, I roll it out generously so it doesn't roll back up on me. And I'll hold this here because I want this on the bottom. I'll place my hand there. Please don't cut your fingers together. I don't want it to be exactly on the spot, just as a guide. And then again, I just kind of crunched it just a little bit. I don't want to damage the magnetic strip, but just so it doesn't warp the art. And then there we go. Peel that off and place it, holding it just a little bit. Awesome. So there we have it. There's a magnet. This is another version of the same shape. Only 2 colors here, 3 colors on this one. But yeah, just repeat those same steps for any of the shells that we colored, whether it's this one. And when you cut this out, you don't have to cut all those little bumps if you don't want. You can just cut the general shape. Doesn't matter. It's all up to you, whatever you prefer. And put them on the fridge, maybe put a vacation photo of what you guys went to this summer underneath. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing any comments at this time. Yeah, please send them my way. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. First sheet. Okay, I see someone wanting to see this. So on top are the swatches, and on the bottom, actually, I'll just hold this up so you guys can see that really big. So if you want to take a screenshot, please feel free. These are some color combinations that we saw today. Awesome. Any other comments or questions, please just direct them. Yes, thank you so much, Jen. Thank you for joining the class. And for wherever you are joining from, we appreciate it very much. The sheet with the shells. Ah, yes, I was thinking. Okay, I'll hold it a little bit lower so you can see all of the writing on it. And then I can zoom in.
While I definitely recommend taking a screenshot here, please remember that we are going to be Michael's is going to be uploading this class to their YouTube channel in a couple days.
Yeah, and I'll kind of slowly bring this down.
Thank you, Jimena.
Yes, thank you. So here's some more combinations, and I'll go to the top. Yeah, thank you so much. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. But yeah, so there's the shells, and I hope everybody had a really good time and they were able to download the template. I know I put links in there to different products that I used today as well. And this is a really fun project you can do. I think anybody of all ages can do this. Just having this magnetic strip really goes a long way. Having the template and a pair of scissors and a glue stick. So I think this would be a really fun craft for all ages. And we really, really appreciate having you guys here. Oh yes, glitter. I do see somebody have a comment. Yeah, I did actually add our Spica, Copic Spica pens. There's like a glitter pen. You might be able to see that slightly here. But you can actually buy those through Michael's as well. They're just really fun to use too. Okay, so I think that's about it. Nate, anything else? Oh, let me add this. Forgot to add this. There we go. Make it with Michael's, or tag us, Copic with us. We have, I'll take this in case you want to screenshot this too, but make it with Michael's, hashtag Copic with us. And then here's the Instagram handles. And if you want to check out my art, I'm here at the bottom. I have some other tips and pointers as well. But yeah, that's pretty much our hour. And I really, really thank you guys joining us today. I know it's back to school time, so things might be crazy, but I really, really appreciate your time and for joining us. Okay.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yes, thank you guys. I'll see you next month.